now for the Inland Northwest Hope for Parkinson's Conference. It's going to be September 7th, 2013, 9 a.m. to 3 at the Northern Quest Resort and Casino. And it's $20 registration before August 30th. And there's some great speakers, Dr. Santiago, Laura Mishley, Peter Dunlap out of Alaska, who's going to, he's a former cartoonist, and he's does have Parkinson's, and he'll be speaking also. There's going to be a panel on pharmacy and Parkinson's. It's going to be a great program. If you have any questions about that, you can contact the Northwest Parkinson's Foundation at 877-980-7500 or at their website at nwpf.org. Or you can contact Cindy, me, at the Parkinson's Resource Center, and I'll help you navigate to where you need to go to register for that. And today we have Linda Lysne, and I've now known her for a couple years as our caregiver support group facilitator, and I'm really excited to have her here today. Support groups are really important for a lot of different reasons, and I'm going to ask her to come up and just start up and give us some really good information about support groups, and then we'll go from there. We'll do our question and answer period afterwards, so if everybody will mute their mics, and then we'll get your questions afterwards. Thank you for coming today.
Well, welcome everybody. I see some familiar faces from past Parkinson's events and activities, so I welcome you all at the sites as well as here in Spokane. My name is Linda Lysne, and thanks, Cindy, for the intro. The inspiration for this presentation, focusing on support groups as a resource for those with Parkinson's or as a caregiver, really comes from the heart. It will be 5 years in about 6 days that my sweetheart of 47 years passed away from Lewy body disease and dementia with Parkinson. It was 2 years ago, last May, that my 44-year-old son passed away from a rare form of cancer. But I am now on a new journey, new beginnings. One of the focuses of my new journey is to give back to those who were there for me when I was going through some dark times. And one of those places where I have committed is the Parkinson's Resource Center and other Parkinson-related agencies or activities or just circle of friends. So I'm grateful to be here today to share with you my journey in regards to what I think is one of the most important and critical resources that you have to help you in your journey, whether it be a caregiver or whether it be the one with Parkinson's and or dementia. Most importantly, I hope that you will learn that you are not alone. I will speak both metaphorically and candidly about what I learned on my own journey in relation to support groups. Then segue into information on current groups available, how to access them, what they are, what it means to be in a group, and finally followed by Q&A if we have some time, and I'm sure we will. But first of all, I want to dispel one of the most common misperceptions of a support group or a group of any kind. There are many different kinds of groups, and I'm sure you're familiar with at least the names of some of them. AA, grief and loss groups, anger management. Matthew Perry made that one kind of famous on his show Go On, but it wasn't quite true to form. Stress management, and others. I have facilitated many groups in my professional life, mainly grief and loss, stress and anger management, and as a certified chemical dependency professional, where I worked with those in treatment where groups were mandated, usually by court or by the treatment plan itself for drug and alcohol. One of the most common responses I get when I kind of offer the option of groups to the people that I have worked with in the past and who I interact with even now is, no, I don't want to be in a group. Okay? I don't want to share my private information and personal life with anybody else. I don't want to listen to all that whining and complaining. Believe me, I understand those comments and concerns. I've been there. But I hope today I might be able to change that perception somewhat. If you're one of those who says, nah, I hope that I can change your perception to something very positive, to give you some new hope, and again, to let you know that you are not alone in this journey that you're on, called Parkinson's and or dementia or as a caregiver. It's a tough journey, believe me. A couple of months ago, I was traveling down a highway alongside a raging river on my way to my favorite lake, very common here in the Northwest. The river was running very high. It was June, so there was a lot of runoff. And usually I do my best thinking on road trips or in the shower. So I was on a road trip. And my mind started working. I talked to Cindy about doing this presentation. And I talked to Cindy, looked at the beautiful river, and I thought, you know, there's a lot of similarities between a lake, beautiful lake, a raging river, and the journey that you're on. Call this a metaphor, if you will. But the beautiful lake can be very placid, can be very peaceful, can be very beautiful, can bring you peace, and perhaps in the early stages of Parkinson's, you're not really seeing too much change in your loved one. Still functional in every way, moving along, but eventually that beautiful lake is going to start feeds into a river, and it might be calm at first. But you know what? As you go around the first bend or the second bend, guess what? You're all of a sudden into rapids, and you didn't anticipate that. You're scared, you're anxious, you're worried, you're concerned. Am I going to get out of this okay? What's ahead? And then it calms down again. I call this plateauing when it comes to the journey of Parkinson's and caregiving, but especially Parkinson's. You kind of go through those stable times, then once in a while you start taking a nosedive a little bit. Symptoms really flare up. Then you have another plateauing effect. But anyway, back to the river. You got through the first rapids, but that river continues around many, many bends. And around each bend are those rapids again. And sometimes they get harder and harder to maneuver through. And you wonder why you ever made the decision to do what you're doing. Well, I equate that to the journey of Parkinson's and dementia and caregiving. Because no day is the same. No week is the same for many. You move along as best you can, but you hit those rapids, and all of a sudden, you're in over your head. The future is unknown, the anxiety levels are high, depression sets in, emotional roller coasters, you name it. You've heard this before, so you know what I'm talking about. For each one of you, the reality of this journey is very individual and probably very personal and very private, and that's okay. But I want to ask you, referring back to the metaphor of the river, how well are you prepared for the unexpected? Where do you share your fears, anxieties, guilt, and fear? Is everybody in that boat as scared as you? Or is there somebody that you can talk to to? Probably not. How comfortable are you asking for help? What are your choices for support? Now, this is where I get a little bit candid. We have family, we have friends, we have our faith or spiritual belief systems. We have a counselor, perhaps a physical therapist, others that are helping us along the way to do what we need to do. We have in-home care, people who will come out and give respite, help with the lifting. And for some, there is no choice at all. But let me go back with that list again. And let me be real and candid about the choices you have. Family. It would be wonderful to know that every one of you watching this presentation today has a family 100% behind you. There when you need them and will be for as long as you need them. But you know what? From my experience, that doesn't happen all the time. It's there for some, but there are a lot of families that are estranged. There are a lot of families that are divided. Some have no families at all, no siblings, no parents. Parents have passed away. They're all alone. So family might even be at quite a distance and not be able to travel to meet your needs when you need them. Or they could be in denial, especially adult children. I found this very common. Adult children who just simply don't want to be a part of the caregiving because it hurts too much. It's too painful. They don't want to see mom and dad or a loved one that is slipping away. Faith and spiritual beliefs are very important. They were for me. And I hope that if you have a belief system in place, that you will turn to it, because it is very, very important to have that strength that you believe in. Your medical team, but you know, they don't always have the time to address the emotional issues that you're facing. They certainly do with the physical, but the emotional stuff is kind of not where they're supposed to be spending their time. In-home care is just that. They come in periodically and they're wonderful support, providing respite, providing help with picking up and showering and what have you when the ADL's activities of daily living are no longer, your loved one is no longer able to do. Or you may be someone with no choice at all because you have no family, no friends, you're isolated, you've not developed a social network, and it can be a pretty lonely life at this point. For me, the value of a support group is that a caring community helped me get through the dark, dark days and months and years that I went through, but also helped me to understand those things that I cannot control or those things that I cannot change, helping me to live in the present with the realities of my new life and your new life. Things change. Your relationship to your loved one changes. The roles sometimes change. And those adjustments can take a lot out of you without some place to turn where the other person or the group understands with empathy and compassion what you are going through. The other thing that a group will provide for you is humor. And I know we're going to have a focus on a humor telehealth, but humor. And in the two groups that I facilitate, and I'll talk about those in just a moment, humor plays a really important role when we can laugh together at some of the things that happen. I want to share a real quick story. I know I've shared it many times with my groups and others. Very early on in my husband's progression, he was still pretty functional. He was driving, and cognitive abilities were slipping a bit. But every week, at least 2 days a week, he would drive from our home on the South Hill here in Spokane down to Hastings around 5 o'clock, and this was in November or so when it was dark. And he'd have coffee with his very dearest best friend. Well, one night, as I'm sitting watching the 5 o'clock news, he walks in from the garage and he says, "Honey, I drove the wrong car home." And I looked at him, started laughing. How could you drive the wrong car home? And he forgot all about it, sat down, watched the news, but I couldn't let it go. So I got up, walked out to the garage, and sure enough, it wasn't our car sitting in the garage. We were driving a white Toyota two-door, and we had a very subtle stripe down the outside of it. This car had a big, bold black stripe full of cigarette cartons and the smell of cigarettes, and it wasn't our car. So our key worked in both cars. But I sat there thinking, what do I do next? Well, I got on the phone to the police, knowing that somebody was going to report a stolen car, and sure enough they had. But anyway, make a long story short, that is a story that I tell time and time again because both my husband and I together laughed ourselves silly with that story. And he loved to tell the story on himself. But yeah, there's a lot of humor when you start looking back sometimes. Maybe not when you're in the midst of the journey in the darkest hours, but there is humor to be had. Now, about support groups, and that's what this focus is all about. What is a support group? How do I access one? What do you mean? What do they do? So on and so forth. Well, first of all, the process starts by making a choice. And just think about your choices. Do you stay where you are now, and perhaps you are filled with some of the uncertainties and unknowns on an emotional roller coaster, and you just don't know how you're going to get through to the next day? If that's not where you're at now, perhaps down the road, it could be. So what is your choice? Do I try to find some place where people are going to understand what I'm going through? Support groups are voluntary. There's nobody, making you go, and there's no one making you stay. If you come for a look, so to speak, to see if it's going to work for you, and you decide, this isn't for me right now, that's fine too. Maybe another time. We keep the groups small in number so we can let those that are in the groups have more time to do their sharing, because that's what it's all about. And one of the biggest criteria of all is confidentiality. When you do join a group, anything that is shared in that group, as well as your name, remains in that group. There's no way to enforce that, of course, but we really emphasize to the group members that what is shared there stays there, so that you build a trust with those in the group and the facilitator that you can count on from month to month and know that you're in a safe place. Our groups are for both genders. I have males in my 2 groups, and there are males in the other groups, as well as a majority of females, and that's fine. The group members are non-judgmental. They're not going to be sitting there giving you advice, telling you you need to do this or need to do that. They might make a suggestion here and there if they feel they can be of help in some way because they've had that same experience. But they are non-judgmental. And I think that's a very big part. how many, well, I guess I can ask the audience here, but how many times have you been told that your loved one is okay? Or, he doesn't have any symptoms now. He's behaving fine, or she, and you want to pull your hair out because they're not with them 24/7. And they don't know what that path is like, that journey is like. Groups are respectful. They respect anything you have to say, even if it's a 4-letter word that slips out now and then, which it can happen. The group is respectful of that individual because that anger, that frustration that they're feeling is so very real to all of the group members. Compassionate, yes. I don't know how many times I have walked out of the groups I facilitate when I just think all the way home, boy, did you feel the love today? Because that's really where it's at. You do feel that compassion and that support. And that these people that you're in a group with are there because they care and because they're on the same journey. They're walking the walk. Also, groups provide resource information that you maybe have not heard or experienced anywhere else. It's really important to know that there are resources that may not be available or that you haven't heard about in workshops or other presentations. Things like transportation and respite care that, gosh, I didn't hear about when I was walking my walk with my loved one. There are many types of groups that the Parkinson's Resource Center offers, and there are many groups that the Northwest Parkinson's Foundation offers. I won't speak to the Northwest Parkinson's Foundation groups because I'm not familiar with all of them, but if you are watching from a site where that is in your geographic area, I encourage you to call the facility and to find out what groups they have and what groups might fill your need if you have an interest. For those of you who don't have the ability to access a group site, think about starting one in your own community. It doesn't take too much, does it? I'm not a mental health professional, a counselor. I'm just someone with a commitment and a passion, caring for the people that I
From 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
You can do the same thing
My husband works now from 10
through a
p.m. to
school.
6 a.m. And then he sleeps.
Got a little competition here.
Have to be up by
Through a school, through a church, through a coffee shop, just pulling people together. And you can contact Cindy here at the PRC for information on how to contact me, or she'll pass the information if you're in the Spokane area, so that I can work with you perhaps on setting up a group of your own. Now, let me just speak briefly to the two groups that I facilitate and give you a little picture of how that works. I call these groups process groups, and that's exactly what they are, process groups. The members come in and they process their feelings. Both groups right now are closed groups. I only allow 8 in because of the time limitations, so that everyone gets an opportunity, if they wish, to share. They're confidential. We don't let anyone into the group once the group starts. I don't. Kind of firm on that one. We don't invite interns in. We don't invite observers in. We don't invite, just anyone else in, because this group has built such a trust and a bond, and they don't want to feel like they're being observed. That's me being candid now, and that's the way it is. They have to know that what is said is going to be within the group. It is a distraction and an interruption to bring anybody into the group that is not a part of the group. And I hope that makes sense to everybody. And you can ask me about that later if you wish, but that is the way my two groups work. Now, I have on the drawing boards, I have ideas and plans for another group. We have a waiting list starting for a third group. Both of the groups that I facilitate meet on Wednesday, the third and fourth Wednesday of the month. But I'm looking at an evening group, and I'm looking at a Valley group. I'm looking at an all-male group for men who have PD, Parkinson's. Not for me to facilitate, just to get them organized so they can meet for coffee and take it from there. But one of the things I have found with my male participants is that they need some place to talk to another guy, just one-on-one or with a small group of guys, and maybe just share stories and what have you. So I'm working on these suggestions and ideas that have been given to me, and it will take a bit of a while to get everything up and running. I hope by mid-fall that we'll have some more groups to offer here in the Spokane area. So Cindy and I are working on that, but we have some outstanding and wonderful groups here already. Cindy, are you still here? There you are. I'm going to turn it over to Cindy to talk about those groups that we have that are outside my two process groups.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that little interruption with the fuzz going on there. And during that, if you missed any of the information, we do have a copy of this being made on DVD, so you can request that later on. We have the two caregiver support groups that we consider closed, and that's what Linda was talking about. And you have to meet with Linda or talk with Linda before you can be added into those. We also have a Parkinson's and Care Partners support group, and that one is not closed, but again, you call and I'll get you in touch with our facilitator, Corrine, and she can talk to you about coming to that. And those, hopefully I have this right, it's the second Wednesday. Thank you. There's enough of them that if I don't have the calendar in front of me, I get confused. But the second Wednesday of each month at 1:30 at the Parkinson's Resource Center. And then we have a Women with Parkinson's Disease support group that meets every month, the first Thursday of the month. And that support group, again, is an open support group, and they kind of combine their support group where they do both a sit-down support group and share, but they also do a social aspect to it also. They bring lunch. They might meet at restaurants, or they might meet at the Parkinson's Resource Center. They might bring in speakers, and also the Care Partners, Parkinson's and Care Partners might also bring in speakers too. There is even though it's not something that we facilitate, there is also a dystonia support group that if you need that information, we can get that information to you. There's a Coeur d'Alene support group, and they might even be out there. Hi, Coeur d'Alene. And our next newsletter that's coming out hopefully in the next couple days, it's at the printer. There is information about what Linda was talking about. We are just working on getting enough people together to start up a group, whether it's a support group or a meeting group or a social group, at a consistent time and place. And if we get enough people, I'll help you find a restaurant, or I'll help you find some place that you can start meeting and see how it works. Again, I know that we've had a request for a young onset, early onset group, and I have several names for that. So keep those in mind. And the other thing that I didn't remember until Linda was talking is support groups kind of have their own way of working. You don't have to do, there's guidelines, kind of ideas on how they should move along. But I do have a how do you start a support group guide. There you can find them from different organizations, and a lot of times they'll be maybe the Alzheimer's Association or the National Parkinson's Foundation, or somebody will have this guide, but it might be focused on that one particular disease or group, but you can use those as kind of your guide as you start out in your direction. And I do have those at the PRC also.
Thanks, Cindy. One last thing I just want to leave you with. I forgot to mention one of the benefits, I guess, of a support group, and it's in the way of taking care of yourself and your own health. For both the Parkinson patient and the caregiver, your health can be pretty well, oh golly, destroyed, if I can put it that way, if one is not taking care of themselves. And that's where having an outlet, like a support group, where you can let go of some of that anger, you can let go of some of that grief, you can laugh maybe with someone who understands why you're laughing, and doesn't take it as an insult or as a disrespect for your loved one, but a place you're sharing, and let those emotions out. Let others help you through the darker times, because I can guarantee you that stress and that anger and that frustration, you're turning it inward, and it's going to manifest itself in probably some very unfortunate health consequences. I can speak to that as well. I have really struggled with my health ever since my journey began. And that's why I say now, I'm just finally feeling the wonderful feeling of new beginnings, moving on with my life. But I couldn't do it, and I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't have the support. Even though I facilitate groups, I'm still loved by those group members, and I know it. I'm supported, I'm encouraged. They were there for me when my son passed away, and believe me, without them, this journey of mine would still be ongoing, and it would be pretty dark. So take care of yourselves. Know that you aren't alone, and that you have a way to find the help that you need by being a part of something bigger than yourself, and that is a support group that wants to love and nurture you along the way. Thank you for your attention. Oh, yeah. Okay. What do we do?
Yeah, you don't get to leave quite yet. Another form of support group is actually a telehealth like we're doing today. One of the nicest things about telehealth, and I never think about this until I get to the end of our telehealth, is this is as much as of a support group as some of the others, because we're coming together. And the other really great thing about here in Spokane, and if you don't do it out there, let me know, maybe we can find a way, is they have really good cookies and coffee. So, you know. But now we're to the part where the question answer period. I'm going to go down the list to everybody I have as checked as connected. And if you'll unmute and tell me how many people have joined us today at your site, and ask any questions that you have, we'll get started. Anchorage, Alaska.
There are two of us here. I'm going to try to unmute. I can't find it. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Hello? Okay, well, there are two of us here today. We have no questions, I don't think. No questions.
Thank you. I hope Anchorage is beautiful.
Yep. Thank you.
Billings, Montana. Okay, Billings, if you're there, go ahead and jump in when you can. Clarkston.
Hello, Cindy. We enjoyed the presentation today. We have 14 people and no questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai Medical Center.
We have 8 people here today and no questions.
Thank you very much. How was that lightning storm the other night, Coeur d'Alene?
Yeah, that was something else.
I saw one picture that everything was lit up over you guys. So thank you very much for being there. Colville, Providence, Mount Carmel. Okay, Grangeville, Kennewick General Hospital. It's not checked, but Miles City, Montana.
Yes, this is Miles City. There's 9 of us, and we thank you for your comments, and we're minus our dog today.
No dog. Well, I hope everything's okay.
No dog.
The dog's on
It's good.
vacation.
They're gone.
Oh, the dog's on vacation. It's a smart dog. Moses Lake, and thank you, Miles City. Moses Lake.
There are 9 of us here today, and thank you so very much for your presentation. We enjoyed it.
Thank you, Moses Lake. Hope things are going well. OMAC. Mid-Valley Hospital. Othello.
There are 2 of us here today, and we're brand new to this. Thank you very much for the presentation, and no questions yet.
Welcome. I got a call that you might be there today, and so if you need to receive the postcards or anything, just contact Cindy at the Parkinson's Resource Center, and I'll get those to you. But thank you for joining us.
Okay, Parkinson's Resource Center.
509-473-2490. Pendleton, Oregon.
There's 2 of us here today. No questions.
Thank you, Pendleton. Hope summer's treating you well. Let's see. Pullman Regional Hospital.
There are 3 of us here. We have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Pullman. I heard school's starting up in just a couple days for you guys down there. That's okay. Tenasket, North Valley Hospital.
We have two today, and it was a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Walla Walla, Providence St. Mary Medical Center. And I have Newport on my list. Newport, is there anybody there today? Okay. And before I get to Spokane, did I miss anybody else?
Kirkland, 1 person, no questions.
Kirkland, I did. I went right by you. Thank you very much for being there today. I apologize for skipping you in the order.
That's the other side of the mountains.
Well, that wasn't why. But thank you for being here today. And now to Spokane. Do we have any questions today in Spokane?
Spokane has 18 today, Cindy.
Okay.
And do we have any questions? No questions.
Okay, well, what's the beauty about support groups is generally those questions come up after you get to think about it for a while. And so it does. Like you said, you're driving down the road and you see the river and your mind is working, or you see something. And so if you would like any information or think about any questions and we turn it off and you go, oh, but I wanted to ask a question, you can contact me at the Parkinson's Resource Center, 509-473-2490, or center, the word center, at SpokaneParkinsons.org. And I will get you to Linda or to any others of the support groups. I might even ask you to help with our big event that's coming up. Kidding. But no, if you want to volunteer, our big event's coming up, Shaken But Not Stirred, on September 27th. And it's 50 years of Bond, and our theme is kind of James Bond anyways. It's the Shaken But Not Stirred. And so if you want information about that, it's a very fun event, and it raises funds for all the programs that we do support in all the areas that we serve. And next month, we are happy and excited to have our new new official Dance for Parkinson's instructor, who is the head of the dance school at Gonzaga University. Her name is Suzanne Ostersmith. If you look her up online at a TEDx, you can see her speak. It's not the same presentation, but really excited. It's about dance and what it does for you what does for everybody, but then also specifically what it does for those affected by Parkinson's. And when I say affected by Parkinson's, not just those with PD, but also the caregivers and families too. And Dance for Parkinson's will be talking about that, but we're going to 4 sessions a month, and the first one will be September 13th. So next month it will be fun. Suzanne will be here, hopefully Linda, our other instructor, and we'll not only be listening to how it works, but also doing some of the exercises and dance along with her from our chairs. So really excited about that. And yes, I did, but thank you. Well, one more time, the Inland Northwest Hope Conference is September 7th at the Northern Quest Casino, and you can also call me for registration information or go to www.nwpf.org to register online. If you register by August 30th, it's $20. That just covers your meal. Everything else is included. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. You didn't get a Parky because you probably already have one.